iron sharpeneth iron. So the general saying goes, and even the Holy Bible also talks about that. And what that implies is move with people that will help you develop your skills, your talents, and move you in the direction of progress and growth. It also implies that if any relationship is not moving you in the direction of progress, you should just discontinue and go on with your life. It is better to be alone than to be among foolish companions. On this exciting note, I welcome you again to the Backstage Story Show on Nollywood Radio France. My name is Demola Sanyaolu, and I'll be right back after this short break. Thank you.
Ọ̀làjú ló dé ló jẹ́ a máa wáṣọ ẹbí. Àkókò ló dé ló jẹ́ a máa kọrin hip hop he. Èyí rè ló jẹ́ a máa dàbí àrà o. Èyí rè ló jẹ́ a máa ṣòun bí àrà o. Balẹ̀balẹ̀ a ò fọmọ yóò fáyò. Tójú bá mọ́ olóko àròkọ olódò àròdò. Èyí ni mo fẹ́, iṣẹ́ orin ni mo yàn. Èyí ni mo fẹ́, iṣẹ́ orin ni mo yàn. Asáré tètè kò jẹ́ kọjá ilé, àrìgbẹ̀dẹ̀ kò jẹ́ sùsọ́nà. Àlílọ lílọ là ń lọ, àbọ̀wọ̀bọ̀ àbọ̀là ó padà wálé. Ilé ẹni, iṣẹ́ ẹni, ilé ẹni. Bàbá rẹ̀ ní fẹ̀yìntì, bí ọ̀lẹ là ń rí. Asáré tètè kò jẹ́ kọjá ilé, àrìgbẹ̀dẹ̀ kò jẹ́ sùsọ́nà. Àlílọ lílọ là ń lọ, àbọ̀wọ̀bọ̀ àbọ̀là ó padà wálé. Ilé ẹni, iṣẹ́ ẹni, ilé ẹni. Bàbá rẹ̀ ní fẹ̀yìntì, bí ọ̀lẹ là ń rí. Pálapàla ló mọ́ mọ́ àkàlà tó fi ń kálá.
Tẹ́ bá bíbí lèrè máa rí sọ, òdodo ọ̀rọ̀.
If you don't know where you dey go, when you dey come, you go dey run around like say you dey find something there. I have seen the shadows, the way that to the light, and deep inside my mind, it feels so hard to bear. Now it's time, let us rise, we can make it all together. We've done it once before, we can do it once again. Sáré tètè kò jẹ́ kọjá ilé, àrìgbẹ̀dẹ̀ kò jẹ́ sùsọ́nà. Àlílọ lílọ là ń lọ, àbọ̀wọ̀bọ̀ àbọ̀là ó padà wálé. Ilé ẹni, iṣẹ́ ẹni, ilé ẹni. Bàbá rẹ̀ ní fẹ̀yìntì, bí ọ̀lẹ là ń rí. Asáré tètè kò jẹ́ kọjá ilé, àrìgbẹ̀dẹ̀ kò jẹ́ sùsọ́nà. Àlílọ lílọ là ń lọ, àbọ̀wọ̀bọ̀ àbọ̀là ó padà wálé. Ilé ẹni, iṣẹ́ ẹni, ilé ẹni. Bàbá rẹ̀ ní fẹ̀yìntì, bí ọ̀lẹ là ń rí.
Ọmọ sọ́hún tó dàbí àṣà ìdílé wa.
Kò má sí,
Ọmọ sọ́hún tó dàbí àṣà ìdílé wa.
kò má sí,
Ẹgbẹ́ lárugẹ, ẹgbẹ́ lárugẹ, ẹgbẹ́ lárugẹ.
ẹgbẹ́,
Ẹgbẹ́ lárugẹ, ẹgbẹ́ lárugẹ, ẹgbẹ́ lárugẹ.
ẹgbẹ́,
Ọmọ sọ́hún tó dàbí àṣà ìdílé wa.
kò má sí,
Ọmọ sọ́hún tó dàbí àṣà ìdílé wa.
kò má sí,
Ẹgbẹ́ lárugẹ, ẹgbẹ́ lárugẹ, ẹgbẹ́ lárugẹ.
ẹgbẹ́,
Ẹgbẹ́ lárugẹ, ẹgbẹ́ lárugẹ, ẹgbẹ́ lárugẹ.
ó yá máa dàbí ẹ,
Dàbí àṣà ìdílé wa.
ó yá dàbí ẹ,
Dàbí àṣà ìdílé wa.
ó yá dàbí ẹ,
Ẹgbẹ́ lárugẹ, ẹgbẹ́ lárugẹ.
ó yá dàbí ẹ,
Ẹgbẹ́ lárugẹ, ẹgbẹ́ lárugẹ.
ó yá dàbí ẹ,
Dàbí àṣà ìdílé wa.
ó yá dàbí ẹ,
Dàbí àṣà ìdílé wa.
ó yá
Ẹgbẹ́ lárugẹ, ẹgbẹ́ lárugẹ, ẹgbẹ́ lárugẹ.
ó yá dàbí ẹ.
Ẹgbẹ́ lárugẹ, ẹgbẹ́ lárugẹ.
Iléyá, Iléyá, ẹ̀yin ará Iléyá, bá a ṣiṣẹ́ ẹ̀jẹ̀ rántí ilé o. Iléyá, ẹ̀yin ará Iléyá, Iléyá, ẹ̀yin ará Iléyá. Iléyá, Iléyá, ẹ̀yin ará Iléyá, bá a ṣiṣẹ́ ẹ̀jẹ̀ rántí ilé o. Iléyá, ẹ̀yin ará Iléyá, Iléyá, ẹ̀yin ará Iléyá.
Welcome back. Today I have a special guest, and he's a filmmaker, he's a storyteller, he's a director, he's a photographer, he's a cinematographer, and he's a producer. His career has spanned more than 4 decades. in industry, and he specializes in producing movies that promote Nigerians' rich cultural heritage. And he has a root in documentation, archiving, education, entertainment, and promotion of the cultural heritage of Nigeria. I have with me Tunde Kelani, popularly known as TK. Uncle Tunde, good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon. My name is Tunde Kelani, TK, and I'm a filmmaker. I've had ups and downs through the development of media. You can say from orality to social media, a lot of ups and downs for the last 40 years, and I can tell you I've enjoyed every moment of it. Right now I'm on the Backstage Story Show with Demola on Nollywood Radio France.
That is Uncle Tunde Kelani. We call him TK. That's his popular name. So I'm going to be using TK, Uncle Tunde, along this interview, and to show a lot of respect. And because of our rich cultural heritage, I'll be calling him Uncle Tunde all along. Uncle Tunde, good afternoon. Welcome again to this exciting episode of the Backstage Story Show. We want to give your listeners a background history of who you are, sir.
First of all, I prefer you say TK because many people are not used to Uncle Tunde. There are apparently maybe a million Uncle Tundes, but TK triggers. I mean, it's a memory jogger of who TK is. When I started in the beginning, I didn't know I was going to be in any way associated with filmmaking. I just fell in love with a camera, and once I got a camera of several of them, I never let them go. And because of my interest in literature, theater, cinema, and especially cinema, I started a career in photography as an apprentice. But I saw many of the big films that came into Nigeria in the cinemas in Lagos. And when I saw Kongi Harvest, which was written and starred our own Kongi, Professor Wole Soyinka, a Nobel laureate, and great talents in Nigeria like Rashid Onikoyi, and Dakwade Lugba, and Wale Ogunyemi, our great uncle Orlando Martins, and others I knew well. Now I have to consider filmmaking, and I joined the Western Nigerian Television where I was trained as a film cameraman, and then proceeded to London Film School to do a professional diploma course in the art and technique of filmmaking, and came back into Nigeria and became independent filmmaker. I think altogether my experience in television spanned about 10 years, and when we started main film production, I still did a lot of newsreel work for the BBC World Service and Reuters, and an occasional independent filmmakers from outside the country. And my position gave me the opportunity to travel Nigeria, to know its people, and to explore and become perhaps an unwilling witness to some of the great events that were to shape our country, Nigeria. So I make films. I'm an independent filmmaker in Nigeria, and sort of experiencing the industry and the phenomenon of what is generally regarded as Nollywood.
All right. I've been speaking with TK, and he has given us a brief history about who he really is. Now, TK, let's talk about your relationship with your grandfather. It was the Balogun, it was the chief, or the Balogun of Ijayi-Kokudi, right? Your relationship with him, would you say, contributed a lot to your interest in movie production?
Well, I think that what I gained from my grandfather and the whole environment exposed me to our rich cultural heritage. For instance, we had we're living in a compound in houses that are locked together, and that is where we learned tolerance, because we had to mix people with different faiths, Christians, Muslims, traditional Orisha worshippers. We were all one. And we shared everything. We shared the festival. We shared seasons. And living with my grandfather, although as a child, you are not permitted to talk mostly, but you listened. And the other chiefs, you regularly hold meetings. And one of what came to my consciousness was that they started the meeting from morning till afternoon. And I decided, that when I grew up, I would be able to speak from morning till afternoon without stopping. I thought that I could just talk without stopping, because at that time, that is what it appeared to me, that they just talked. So I felt that, yes, this was an important part of being an adult and so on. So at first hand, I experienced the Yoruba way of life, and culture. The whole community invested in me, and because you are mentored not from your biological relation, but from the community, you could end up and sleep anywhere you liked. They just shouted across, where is he? He's with us. Don't worry. You come back in the morning, and so on. Things that have disappeared. I think there has been alienation from our culture, and we are all now witnessing a lot of underdevelopment.
All right. TK, you worked earlier in the 70s as a BBC, TV, and Reuters correspondent, and then you traveled to Ethiopia, and then you were in Zimbabwe for their independence. Your travels, your journey, your sojourning all over these places, how has it contributed to your...
In fact, when I was in the Western Nigerian television, I traveled locally, and later I changed to Lagos Nigerian Broadcasting Service, or NBC TV. That gave me the opportunity to travel with journalists like John Chaiman, and to all those places: Ethiopia, Mauritius, Seychelles, Zimbabwe, Mozambique, South Africa, and all those places. And inevitably, it opened my mind, not just at home, but across the continent, and got involved in, for instance, the independence of Seychelles, and then the great election that brought Mugabe into power in Zimbabwe, and is still there now, and we visited Ethiopia, and we recorded the drought in Wolof, and all those great events. And so it was, for me, preparation of a journey. My association with the Western press, worked for BBC World Service with at least 4 correspondents, and occasionally worked for Reuters, was to come later in my career, after I left television, maybe between late 80s and early 90s. I, was really active. For instance, during the Babangida Abacha era, to the incarceration of Moshood Abiola, the president-elect who won the election, and up to the murder and assassination of Kudrat Abiola, and the eventual burial of MK Abiola himself. After that time, I felt there was nothing that could be more exciting, and then I started to withdraw to face making narrative films fully, and turn my back on newsreel work.
I have been speaking with Tunde Kelani. He's a film producer, he's a director, he's a storyteller, he's a photographer, he's a cinematographer, he's a producer. He's an embodiment of this industry. He's all encompassing. TK, I'll need to ask you, after you finished from London Film School, you co-produced a movie with Abeokuta called The Dilemma of Reverend Father Michael. You want to tell us about that? I think that's the origin of your filmmaking.
When I came back when I turned independent, what I did was to team up with my friend Wale Fano, and we started a company that's called Cinecraft, Independent Films. It's still in Surulere, and Wale has done a good job to keep it alive. But what we did then was we had acquired some filmmaking equipment, and we had some expertise. So we provided those services, and we worked technically on most of the Yoruba movies that were made at that time. And sooner or later, I got the bug and said, wait a minute, it's a few years after I left London Film, so I should really be thinking of producing a first film. And so the way I went about it was to look at Abeokuta's work and chose the one I felt would be the easiest to produce. And I selected Demola Sanyaolu, The Dilemma of Father Michael, and we adapted it and titled it Iwa. And basically, it's an interesting story of a gang of criminals, robbers, that inducted a young person, and when they went out, for his sort of induction, they asked him to shoot the victim in a robbery, and the poor boy had to comply, and an innocent boy shot the victim, but he had a conscience, and he had gone to confess to the Reverend Father Catholic priest to say he had committed a crime, that he had shot someone, and the father had advised him to go and report himself to the police. And they said, and this boy says, no, it's between me and God, and you are a representative of God, so I'm telling you, but if you lie, you can expose me and tell the authorities, but I'm not stupid, I'm not going to do that. But now that I've confessed to you, a Catholic priest, that you have preached all these things, then you can go and report me. So it became a dilemma, because the poor Reverend Father could not tell the police, and he expected the culprit himself to report himself. So it became a dilemma, in the foreign religion and what it preaches, and in contradiction to the cultural belief of a people. So that was the dilemma. That was the drama that attracted me to it in the first place. The idea of me working in low budget was I couldn't pay Abeokuta for the rights. So I thought that if we became co-producer, then I didn't have to pay him. So we became partners. And then I had a partner who became another producer, and the Paliti had another partner. So eventually we ended up with about 5 co-producers. And that was my baptism to filmmaking.
All right. Celluloid, sir. Celluloid films and the modern film production. There are some films you did in celluloid that you worked on. Anikura, Ogun Ajayi, Yaniwura, Taxi Driver, Iwa, and Fokomoyo. You want to talk about celluloid and the modern film production?
Well, this is interesting from the point of view of the technology, because then I felt the whole process of the chemical process of celluloid was cumbersome, it was foreign, it was expensive, and because the early filmmakers could not control the means of production, we had to rely on getting the foreign exchange to source for the material from abroad. And after we have even made the film, we had to ship everything back to the West or to America for processing and so on. So we couldn't really control the process. And not until, fortunately, due to some economic factor, the Nigerian economy collapsed. And then we started to look for an alternative process, an alternative technology of making films. And I think that today, due to advancement, because the Nigerian film industry went through phases after we couldn't work in the negative process, we still managed to use reversal films, which was used extensively in television broadcasting. And after that, at the introduction of ENG's electronic new gathering video system, it was instantly adopted. Both professional and consumer, everything, Nigeria had appropriated to make films on video. But today, fortunately for us, within the period of 20 years, we are suddenly in a knowledge era, we are in a digital era, and what I had done is provide applicants with the means of production. That means we could actually own the necessary equipment or the technology to tell our stories. And within that period, Nollywood, in the popular Nollywood is born, and suddenly we have a voice, and we could contribute meaningfully to global cinema. We can show our cultural diversity, and we established our own homespun industry, which is becoming global. We started with what you can, you see, we say charity begins at home. We started from home, and now we're on our way through advancements in technology, advantages of technology, and to giving the world our own brand, of filmmaking. And we started from local, and we are going global.
All right, I have been speaking with Tunde Kelani on the Backstage Story Show on Nollywood Radio France. Don't go anywhere. There's still more to come. We'll be right back after this short break.
Nigeria o bàbá àwa lọ́rọ̀ láti bẹ̀ sọ ọ̀rọ̀ ajé Nàìjíríà yìí o ọmọdé lọ́rọ̀ láti bẹ̀ sọ bàbá mímọ́.
ọba jẹ́sẹ̀ dárí jí wa ẹ̀mí mímọ́ a ò lè dáṣẹ́ o. ọba jẹ́sẹ̀ dárí jí wa ẹ̀mí mímọ́ a ò lè dáṣẹ́ o. ọba jẹ́sẹ̀ dárí jí wa ẹ̀mí mímọ́.
Ọlọ́run olùgbàlà wa ìwọ ṣáà ló ti yọ àwọn ọmọ Ísírẹ́lì kúrò lóko ẹrú. Wò ó bí àwọn ògo wẹrẹ wọ̀nyí ti ké fún onírúurú ohun ẹ̀dùn ọkàn wọn. Ọlọ́run wò ó bí iná fìtílà orílẹ̀-èdè Nàìjíríà yìí ṣe ń jó rẹ́súrẹ́sú fún ọ̀dà òróró tí òróró yìí sì ń ṣọ̀dà níbi ìsùn. Pàápàá jùlọ àwọn ògo wẹrẹ wọ̀nyí ké nítorí bí wọ́n ti ń wo àwọn òbí wọn ti ń fi òógùn pẹ̀lú omijé lójú fúrúgbìn. Ọlọ́run ìgbà wo ni àsìkò fi ayọ̀ká yóò dé?
Bàbá mímọ́
ọba jẹ́sẹ̀ dárí jí wa ẹ̀mí mímọ́
Jésù Kristi olùgbàlà.
a ò lè dáṣẹ́ o.
Ìgbà tí ìbànújẹ́ lọ́wọ́ gbanú ọkọ̀ wọn gangan.
olùtùnú ó wá tù wá nínú.
Ìgbà tó gun ayé jẹ́ tó hàn lẹ́ mọ́ wọn bàbá.
olùṣègùn ó wá ṣẹ́gun.
Bàbá.
Yóò àti pẹ́ tó. A ó àti pè ọ́ tó. Ojú wo wá o, ìlú Nàìjíríà. Ojú wo wá o, Olúwa. Ojú wo wá o, ìlú Nàìjíríà. Ojú wo wá o, Olúwa.
Ọlọ́run ọ̀pọ̀ ẹni tí àjọ níyà yìí náà ló ti pọ̀. Wọ́n ṣe wọn ò rọ́nà àbáyọ. Ṣé bí wọ́n ní bẹ́ẹ̀ kó bá pẹ̀lẹ́ alẹ́ mi? Ayọ̀ ń bọ̀ lọ́wọ́. Ìgbà wo gan-an lẹ̀rín fẹ́ rọ́pò ẹ̀kún wa ní Nàìjíríà? Olúwa bojú wo lè kó wá? Agara ń dá ní Olúwa.
Ìlú Nàìjíríà, ojú wo wá o, Olúwa.
ló lẹ́sẹ̀ o ìyànjú lẹ́ẹ̀dá ń gbà.
Yes, welcome back. I am still with Tunde Kelani, TK. TK, you were an assistant director and you were also an actor in a movie in 1990, this drama, American drama, Mr. Johnson. And it featured Pierce Brosnan, Maynard Eziashi. You want to talk about that movie? How did you feel directing, being an assistant director on that movie and also an actor?
Well, you know, I've had sort of a long years of preparation from the day I was employed in television in 1970. I've been tutored and mentored by. After I came from London Film School, I worked on great films. I worked at least on 2 of Ogunde's films, and the late Gilberto Ogunde, you know, who is one of Nigeria's greatest pioneers in cinema, brought his technicians from England, and his director, you know, from England, and I'd always worked in many capacities, and for me as my own preparation, and I worked with Dr. Olabalogun too, and we worked together on Moshibolaton and on his own film, you know, at least 2 of his own movies too, and Owolagba, Money Power, and I work with people like Adeyemi Afolayan, Adelove, you know, occasionally who bring in foreign technicians as well. With Olabalogun, you know, I was working with technicians from Brazil and who spoke Portuguese, you know, and so for me, again, it was a great opportunity because Ogunde tipped me to work on Mr. Johnson, and for 3 months, you know, I was on a daily basis working with the best in the world and being close to Bruce Beresford, the director himself. And when I joined the team and the crew, I learned, you know, from like the director of photography, Peter James, who is an ASC, and the production designer, Abba Painter, you know, and all the international cast. And just listening and working with these people, I mean, gave me so much experience, you know, so invaluable to me that there's no way I could have, you know, gained that experience. But perhaps more importantly, it gave me the opportunity to study the literary source material, which is Mr. Johnson, which was written by Joyce Carey. And there was a controversy that Joyce Carey was not qualified to write on colonial administration. And then I studied the screenplay adaptation by William Boyd. And the interesting part of it, I was given the part to play of James. So I was involved in a way with this project, in a way that what he gave me was more than money. It was actually preparing me also for the role that I was to play later in my own career.
All right, I have been speaking with TK, Tunde Kelani, and it's nice to have you here, sir. It's nice to have your time. Tunde Kelani is giving me quite a time here because he has spared his time for me to grant this interview. So it's a privilege and a honor, sir. Now, you started your own company, Mainframe, in 1991 precisely. Mainframe's films and television production, also called Opomulero. Now, since you started your company, would you say, what has been your experience? I'm sure it's not a bed of roses all the while, but what has been your experience? Some of the challenges you encountered in trying to stabilize your own production company?
Well, I think Mainframe Productions of Opomulero, we knew from day one that what our mission was. Our mission primarily was that, yes, we will entertain our people, but we will make seriously meaningful films. And we said that in the process, we would strive to promote, to preserve, and to document our rich cultural heritage. And that we were going to use our indigenous language and culture to express ourselves. And that was going to be our own global view. It was a very difficult path to take because we are working against the current, because the industry is reputed to be extremely low budget, very low quality and standard, financed by business people who really didn't care about cinema. So we refused from day one to be funded by any of the business people because we could not cede creative control. We want to dictate the creativity, the amount of creativity, and the overall standard of, including our design and everything. And so, on the short term, we didn't look like it made good business sense. But on the long term, we think that we will win, because even now, we can say that Mainframe is perhaps the only film production company in Nigeria that has a body of work, a collection of work from when we started 20 years ago till now. That is, we have become sort of a bridge between the industry. We have experienced all the technology, various technology till now. Our work has been progressive, and it can be studied, and they are indeed being studied, in universities and tertiary, institutions. And we think our work is evolution, but largely today we have managed to collect everything we have done, unlike the time of celluloid chemical, because all the films that were made in Nigeria from 60s till now are completely lost in foreign laboratories. We can never come across most of them again. They are lost. I mean, it's a catastrophe. It's a blow to African creativity that because of the aspect of that technology, we have lost other vast resources. So I think that Mainframe of Pomerero has become more than us. It has become like an institution for the reorientation into cultural heritage.
All right, sir. Would you say that the Nigerian film industry, generally, they call it Nollywood, would you say it is evolving into something of a notable, of worthy note? Would you say it has evolved into a progressive entity, or we're still not there yet?
I think it's dynamic, and I think that we have done very well. I think that the way that the industry has started in private enterprise and made so many ripples all over the world suggests that, yes, we have more than a foundation, and we have the capacity to grow. And it's growing because government, corporate organizations, foreign investors are here. Just like what happened with our football, our soccer, they are, looking out for opportunity to buy into this industry, because there's still a long way to go. Because suddenly, I think that it is a compliment when we are compared with Hollywood, America, and India. Certainly we don't have the infrastructures that they have as investment in those countries. But we now know, that we can grow. The country can grow along infrastructure, electricity, broadband internet, and capacity for all those things. So we are still very young, and we still have a long way to go, and we have to be very realistic, and not be carried away from the glamour of the compliments that we are getting. Otherwise, if care is not taken, empty barrels, we just make noise, and there's nothing at the end of the day to show for it. But Nigeria has the capacity to give the world a really great cinema.
All right, this is still the Backstage Story Show on Nollywood Radio France, and I have been speaking with the legend in cinematography, in photography, and in storytelling. He's a director, he's a producer. So I have been speaking with the legend, Tunde Kelani himself. TK, thank you very much for this privilege. I want to ask you, you get these accolades while you are alive. A lot of people don't seem to get celebrated while they are alive. How do you feel when people call you and they give you all these accolades for all the jobs that you have done while witnessing it being alive?
No, I pray for that I have good health, because I still have a lot to do. And further, my conscience says I've not done enough. But within the available resources and the help supporters, the government, my friends, healers, all those people, I still manage to go on. But the great is yet to come. And hopefully before I die, I have to have perhaps a CK Center for Cinema and Culture somewhere, preferably in Lagos, where I can be resident and where researchers, students of cinema, culturists, people can come and we can have a nice time, we can rub minds, and so on. So I think that I still have a few more to offer because I think I have now the maturity and the experience, to do great work.
All right. In this industry, in this movie industry, we've seen a lot of shoddy production, and with over 4 decades of experience in this industry, how are you able to maintain the standard, your resilience, your tenacity, and then you're able to maintain the standard of quality and production in the movie industry? How are you able to achieve this?
I'm learning all the time and drawing from the superior arts, like literature, poetry, philosophy, traditional theater, music, design, and other things. And the cinema is a very weak art, but it had there's the exciting factor that I could always draw and run to any of those other component arts. So, and the technology also is really exciting, and I'm learning from world cinema, and I'm trying every day, harnessing all this. I'm reading every time, I'm practicing all the time, I'm watching other people's movies all the time, I'm looking at all Nollywood films. I'm sampling at least 20 a month, all in all, to strive, even for me, Tunde Kelani, to become a better filmmaker.
All right, TK, your blockbuster film, Tiolu Anile, that film was a masterpiece. Now, you had three editions of that film, or 3 episodes, let's say, in 3 parts. It came in 3 parts. What inspired the production of that movie? That movie was so
I think that, yes, again, when we started making production, we wanted to take, I said every time I go back, I can go back to any, in this case, I'm using an example of the popularity of Yoruba traveling theater to work with one of its best, Alhaji Karim Adepoju Babawande. So this is somebody they used to, but what I did was to put in a bit more research and just supply some cinematic elements, not to overdo it, just to throw in a bit like in cooking a soup, and it worked. I think the other 2, the part 2 and 3, that we just made for commercial considerations. Otherwise, I think the first one told the story, but even then, anytime we do any part, we make sure that can stand alone. Any one of them can stand alone, not particularly because they are in part. So I think it was the first production, and we've tried to build, along that, perhaps other that tradition, and then to look again into literary adaptations, which I'm passionate about literature, and I've sort of used all the models into storytelling.
All right. And your rich cultural heritage, your rich cultural heritage and interest for literature is what is actually propelling you to do some of this. But some of your movies, why didn't you name them in Yoruba? Why didn't you title them Yoruba real names? Like the Campus Queen, you have the Narrow Path, and then you have the White Handkerchief. Why didn't you give them those Yoruba names?
Well, the movies that are made in English, Thunderbolts, for instance, they derive from a literary source, and I want to maintain continuity, because they are books, and sometimes I want to retain the title of the book so people can watch the movie and go back, to look for the books. In other words, it's like reintroducing literature, the popularity of literature in another form. People don't read anymore, and this is what I wanted to do, to intentionally keep the language of the source material, and if possible, keep the title of the original book, so that it can promote the reading the book and then celebrate the writer also.
Okay. Before we talk about your movie, your latest movie, Dazzling Mirage, I want us to expound on the Association of Nigerian Theatre Arts Practitioners. What is your take on this association? There are several associations coming up, and there seems to be disunity. You are an elder in this industry. What is your take?
No, the traditional association of ANTP. Started way back. They are a cultural institution, and they also taught me a lot. Because I had a long association with them. We worked together and so on. But it's just more that today there's more politics than what it was supposed to serve. It was supposed to protect the interest of the Yoruba audience, because they went from generation to generation, generation to generation, generation to generation, and they carry the audience along with them. So they are the process. Their primary responsibility, just in the original traditional Egungun court, was to entertain the Yoruba nation. They would travel all over, just doing social relevant material, and they were sort of safeguarding the culture also while entertaining them. But I think that over time this has been polluted, especially because of foreign influence and because of technology itself, because they went from stage to television, from television to film to home video. Therefore, it has diluted the process of preparing people to become actors and actresses. Then it has to be total theater. First of all, you have to have a passion for it. You have to be ready to be apprentice. You have to learn drum. You have to learn acting. You have to learn dance. You have to learn composition. You have to learn everything. But today, all that is gone. And I think because of that change, this change and so on, it's affected the association itself, which has become politicized over time, and it's left to, I think it's caused a lot of disunity among its members. The Yorubas are the social group that worked in a hierarchical system where people belong to caucuses or they are under masters. They started with their various groups and then learn their way up, and then they graduate, and then they start their own troop, and so on. I think it's a marvelous system, and it's one of my resources. It's certainly one of my inspiration when I make it. I combine all the techniques, borrow, from American cinema, the traditional traveling theater, other cinemas and so on, and give it my own style.
So ANTP, sir, is there a way forward? What would you suggest should be a way to converge for cohesion to exist? Because Dr. Sanyaolu also mentioned one thing. He said ANTP is not Yoruba alone, that it cuts across. It's an indigenous. It's supposed to protect indigenous movie production, not just Yoruba.
Well, I'm not a member of the association. Okay. I could only hope that they can work together. But under the system where they have governors and something, they think they are politicians. I think they should, if possible, remove some of the political tendencies, and they have abandoned what they were supposed to do. They are copying other associations that think that when they form association, they can solicit, for government largesse and things like that. I think they should concentrate more and really come together to think of how they can move the association forward, and they can use the advantage, and they can really come together and forge a road ahead.
This is still the Backstage Story Show on Nollywood Radio France, and I have been speaking with Tunde Kelani, the legend himself. Uncle Tunde, thank you for your time. Now, let's talk about Dazzling Mirage. Dazzling Mirage, what's the storyline?
Dazzling Mirage is our latest film project, and it's adapted from a novel of that same title, Dazzling Mirage, written by Dr. Yinka Ibokare from the University of Ibadan. And essentially it's a love story, but it again has the theme of sickle cell, which again is important also. It is primarily designed to entertain, but again to draw more attention to sickle cell disorder, and people living with the disorder and their families, and again educating people, drawing more attention and information on sickle cell disorder, because Nigeria happens to be the epicenter of sickle cell disorder in the whole world. We have more carriers than any other country, and we feel that we should lend our voice, to working with other groups to effect a change of attitude towards the disorder.
All right, your advice for people that want to venture into cinematography and movie production, that's one. Then two, what's your message for your fans in diaspora, France, US, and globally?
Well, up to now, our work has remained inaccessible to diaspora, but thank God we're already working on it. We are developing the Opomulero network, which we comprise of mobile app and then heavy web, and the Yoruba content that will be on those platforms will be subtitled in English, French, and Portuguese. So this is a way that we can connect with diaspora, and it's only a matter of time. And luckily again, our work has been licensed and already is being hosted on canopystreaming.com. So now at least we are sure that we are getting there slowly, and that once we have all those networks and access to our work, then we can assure everyone that the best of our films is yet to come, and we will continue to use our rich cultural heritage, to contribute meaningfully to global cinema.
All right, your advice to young, upcoming people that want to venture into this?
Well, I think, first of all, that young people should identify their own passion. They should just identify what they love to do. And then once they create the passion for one day, then they should throw everything they have into it. And they should be ready to invest their time and money. And they should not be in any hurry. They will come with time. They have a long journey. And they should not be distracted by the glamour or the money. If it's a question of money, then they should not go into it. Because it's an opportunity again to learn and to have great experiences in life, and more importantly, this is a great time to be doing it because they have all the technology and the tools to excel, and they should not be distracted by the negative aspects of what the technology will offer, but to use technology in a way to assist their rapid development, and they can't miss it. I think that they are in a good era of knowledge and the internet, and the information they need to do anything in the world is all there for them for free. They have more than we had, so if it took us 40 years to do it, they can do it in 10 years.
All right, I have been speaking with Tunde Kelani, the legend himself, the legend in cinematography, in production, in filmmaking. I have been speaking with him, and he has enlightened us on several issues that you may have been concerned to know about. On a final note, before you leave, sir, before we end this program, I want you to talk about Nollywood. That name, the origin. Do you support the use of that name? What is your feel about Nollywood?
I think it's too late to do anything about it. Just like the name Nigeria as an entity was given Nigeria and its talk, I think Nollywood has talk. And what has happened is that if you look at it, the tendency today is to look at it as if it's something monolithic. It is not. It's a cinema of diversity. It's a cinema of expressions. And it's as colorful as the rainbow. So it depends on which Nollywood you are looking at. If you look at Nigeria as a nation, 400 tribes, more than 400 languages, it's just the same in Nollywood. Nollywood is just a reference to Nigeria's contribution to global cinema.
Wow, we could go on and on. There are still many questions yet unanswered, but I think I'll fix another time with TK to have another expository episode with him. It's been the Backstage Story Show on Nollywood Radio France. And remember, listeners, that you can download the app for Nollywood Radio France, and you can listen anywhere in the world simply by going to the Google Play Store, searching for Nollywood Radio France Show, download, and you are live on all our programs. It's nice having you there listening and staying tuned to all our programs. We love you, and we love you. Please stay tuned until I meet you again on the next exciting episode of the Backstage Story Show on Nollywood Radio France. My name is Demola Sanyaolu saying, be good, stay out of trouble, and keep well. Bye.